parties, shareholders, stakeholders. Hi, my name is Sonia. I'm joined by my colleague Abasiemediong. We are co-coordinators of the Corporate Governance and Regulatory Compliance Unit of the firm. And today we will be looking at the paradox that is conscious capitalism. Abasiemediong, tell me, when you hear this phrase, what comes to mind?
So we'll take you back to the 4 pillars of conscious capitalism, which is higher purpose, stakeholder integration, conscious leadership, and conscious culture. And then we look at what these 4 pillars are trying to serve. The purpose of the organization should go beyond just making profits and being valuable to not just the shareholders, but the stakeholders alike. But when I hear conscious capitalism, the question that comes to mind is, can the board of the company, can it really serve all stakeholders, that is the shareholders and the stakeholders? And for me, I kind of see, at least right now, an impossibility in the board being able to equally balance the interest of the shareholders and the stakeholders. Maybe in the near future, this will be possible, but right now, I just think that a particular set of groups' interests would have to suffer. But what do you think about this?
You know what, I completely agree with you. I do think that in the near future, we might start to see more progress in this field, but I think this is only going to be attainable when we're able to balance, long-term strategies with, the goals of the company. But then just on the back of that, since we're just here now, what do you think? Earlier today, I was having a conversation with someone, and then the pushback that I got, because I was having a conversation on the topic we're discussing now, and the person said to me, but this is corporate social responsibility. What you think is conscious capitalism is might as well just be CSR. And my pushback to that was, I believe that conscious capitalism is a more holistic approach to ensuring better stakeholder engagement. But what do you think? Let me know what your thoughts are on this.
Yes, I completely appreciate the concept of CSR. And I mean, you would see big companies like MTN and the Steplats alike having to actually make an impact in the community, in the country, and even outside the country. But then when you look at the number of companies we have in Nigeria, and this is just bringing this down to Nigeria, and we talk of CSR, at least the companies that have grown above their infancy stage, can you really say that, and this is just a question that will be answered another day, I don't think we can really delve into it right now. Can we really say that the CSR, in quotes, that these companies undertake are really measurable or have impact? How is this, monitored? Who are the people that are being impacted? What is the value we are seeing? And then secondly, are they just doing this as a tick the box approach, or do they genuinely want to help the people that are in their community, their stakeholders, etc.? So, which is what brings us back to the paradox of conscious capitalism. Yeah. Are you truly trying to serve the interests of the stakeholders, or is it just a tick the box thing so that the regulators do not come after you? These are the things that are the challenges that we are facing right now.
Yes, exactly, Abasiemediong. I think that you've actually hit the nail on the head with this, because apologies. I do think that more often than not, what we see with CSR is that it is just a box ticking exercise. At some point in the year, we come together, we say, the board comes and said, oh, you know what, we're going to give out books in this community, and that's all it is. And for them, they are a conscious corporation, and they know what they're doing, they're contributing to the society. But then with conscious capitalism, it is that these practices are embedded in the way that you make your policies, and the policies that drive the corporation, it is there. So it's not just a one-off event, it is that we are a conscious company. You have companies like Whole Foods, Starbucks, things like that. You see that in their everyday activities, it is, vividly reflected in how they do their business. But yeah, just on the back of that, we're not going to bring it back to corporate governance, which is why we're here, and just look at the Companies and Allied Matters Act as it is, and what corporate governance is with regards to the board and its relations with the shareholders and the stakeholders. What exactly, where does the responsibility lie?
Yeah. So, right? If you see the way the Corporate and Allied Matters Act 2020 is drafted, it's such that it has tried to integrate both shareholder primacy and stakeholder primacy. So on the one hand, the board is supposed to serve the interests of the company. That's the primary duty. On the other hand, the board is also to serve the interests of the shareholders. However, the Company and Allied Matters Act has made it quite easy for instances where these interests conflict. And then it proceeds to say that where the interest of the shareholders and those of the company are conflicting, the interest of the company should, take prevalence over those of the shareholders. So I think it sort of made the whole like conscious capitalism clear. Like at the end of the day, the company is who you are here to serve. And if you even like trickle it down, if the company is not profitable, the shareholders cannot make value.
Exactly.
So you cannot give the shareholders the value they actually need without making the company, without having to also serve the stakeholders of the company. So yeah.
Yes, fantastic. I completely agree as well, because what is the company?
Yeah.
The stakeholders make up the company. The shareholders are still part of the stakeholders,
Yeah.
but then not all stakeholders are shareholders.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, and Kama has made it quite clear,
Yeah.
you have to ensure that your stakeholders are happy. Of course, the shareholders will be happy because, I mean, a company is a business set up essentially to make profits, but you're not going to make that profit where there is a massive imbalance. I mean, like we said, we're not sure where the balance will come from. There's always going to be some sort of imbalance, and it's a long-term process to getting to where the scales are completely balanced. But for now, it's about ensuring that in the long run and in the practices of that company, the people that need to be happy are happy.
Yeah.
And at this point, it has to be the stakeholders.
I agree.
But then just going on with the topic, not everyone is on all fours with conscious capitalism. Some businesses believe we don't need this. This is irrelevant to us. Some others think that, well, this is essential to our business model. We need to ensure. And I know that the benefits of this is just you're making sure that there's stakeholder engagement. If you're going to maximize profit at the end of the day, you're building a more conscious environment. You're thinking about the environment, thinking about the communities. But then what are the criticisms of conscious capitalism? I know on the one end, it is accessibility. There is the argument that the companies who are conscious, who are capitalist conscious, are not accessible to the common man, to the people who they are being conscious for. You have Patagonia, for instance, and then people say, "Oh, their products are so expensive. I can't afford to get Patagonia hiking gear." But it's one of the most sustainable companies as it is. And just, when you look at things like that, you get coffee from Starbucks. Some people think Starbucks is too expensive, but it's a sustainable company. They're consciously capitalist in the way that they do the things that they do. So accessibility is one of the criticisms of conscious capitalism. But what else? What other criticism do you think there is?
So just to touch on the accessibility before I move on to another criticism of conscious capitalism, situating it down here in Nigeria, right? I would say that for you to be able to achieve what you intend to achieve, you would have to make sacrifices. And in this aspect, you would have to pay money for it. I don't think Nigeria has gotten to a place where we can sustain ourselves on, going green, right? So when we have to source for, or we try to like imbibe these practices, it's cost capital expensive. And then how do you, because the company is to make profits.
Yes.
So how do you make profits? It trickles down to the consumers. So the product becomes more expensive. So I think as we progress, right, we're going to get to the point where these things the products are not as expensive as they are right now. And then just back to your question, I think greenwashing is one of the other problems of conscious capitalism. And that still trickles down to the last point I had made in terms of whether you are actually trying to be, serve the interest of all stakeholders, or you're just ticking the box so that the regulators do not come after you. So you have like cases like the ASIC against Mesa Superannuation, where they presented to their investors that they were practicing sustainability, whilst in the real sense of the word, they realized that they were actually not a sustainable company. And then the investors had to obviously sue them for misrepresentation, fraudulent misrepresentation. So it's the same thing, the same challenges that we face here in Nigeria because of the whole, everybody wants to jump on the bandwagon, and our companies practicing conscious capitalism. I don't even think many companies actually know what it means to practice conscious capitalism. So you find a lot of greenwashing, whether it's intentional or not intentional, having to profess that you're practicing what you actually are not practicing. So yeah, that's one of the challenges we have with conscious capitalism.
Yeah, thank you, Amy. And then just rounding up the conversation, I feel like we've really touched on a lot of key concepts here. What would your recommendation be? How do you see us balancing this in the future? I know we've already talked about boards implementing long-term sustainable practices and policies and things of the sort. But what else do you think would be, instrumental in ensuring that more organizations are tilting towards more conscious ways of being capitalists?
I would say that the approach of enlightened shareholders value
Yes.
should actually be embedded in the core of corporate governance on boards, right? And what does the approach, mean? What does this entail? It's basically having to serve like the purpose, the interest of the stakeholders, so that we would have values for the shareholders. And so at the end of the day, like we had earlier said, if your employees are not happy, they are not working, right? If your customers or your consumers are not buying your goods, your company is not becoming profitable.
Exactly.
So at the end of
your
the
shareholders
day,
won't be happy.
yes, your shareholders would not have any value for the investment they have done in the company.
Exactly.
So at the end of the day, the stakeholders, I mean, whether we like it or not, they are actually the primary focal points in these conscious capitalism conversations. The stakeholders must remain happy for the shareholders to be happy. So consciously practicing enlightened shareholder value would really go a long way to, bridge this gap and ensure that at least in the nearest future, we can get to where we can honestly and truly say that we are practicing conscious capitalism.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, AB. And just on that point, I think this is a fantastic point to end today's discussion. We have looked at the concept of conscious capitalism. We've brought it back home to Nigeria, and how there are companies in Nigeria who are already starting to practice conscious capitalism, what the critiques are, and the best way forward. If we had to advise, that would be the best way forward in ensuring a more conscious business environment for all involved. So at this point, we want to say thank you for listening, and we hope to see you next time on the KENNA Law Café.
Just to put out there as a disclaimer that, the conversations and discussions we're having is in no way an advisory.
Yes.
It's our opinion and based on our research. If you need a detailed advisory on any aspects of any topics we've touched on, please do well to engage KENNA for that. Thank you.